Yeah.
Racism is subtle and pernicious. My wife and I are Unitarian Universalists. We've always prided ourselves on being a progressive church. And recently we've come to grips with the fact that perhaps we have been practicing some of that racism to the extent that in the last year, UUA has committed $5.3 million to fixing the issue of racism in the greater community as well as in our own church. And you're right, you've got to recognize that you are a part of that system. No matter how progressive you are, our environment forces us into that mindset.
Yes, ma'am, over here.
Illness of the soul. And we all have souls, and we're affected. We live in this nation, we breathe it. Sometimes we don't even, I for one, I have adapted myself for so long to this condition that I sometimes don't even, I'm aware of what happened. I'll give you an example. My daughters were talking to me about when I was a young woman working in New York City. And I took every part-time job I could in to help my family. And I found out, I'm telling them I used to work on Mondays and Thursdays and Saturday mornings in Macy's. And my daughters asked, where? What did you do? And I said, oh, I always worked in the back. So I was saying, telling the story. And so they said, in the back, well, were you in front selling things? You know, and I said, I don't have a realization. I never went in front. Well, now that was in the 1950s, and of course, a person of color like me would never be put in front. So I said to my daughter, no, I was always in the back. Those were the jobs I got, and they were saying, everyone must have been the question, and they said, Mom, you were so adorable. And I have no idea. And they said, you have no idea? And I got it. And it happens all the time. I was listening to people here speaking about being followed in stores. I know I'm being followed, but I don't care because I don't steal, and I'm just walking around, and I think it's their problem, not mine. But also I read that people of color are really afflicted by high blood pressure, stress-related illnesses. They develop all kinds of illnesses because the constant dealing unconscious or conscious that we live with on Earth. So, yes, but to my white friends,
on with our thing. So we have one more. So Barbara, I saw your hand first, so you're up.
Many of us in this room have been talking about the issue of reparations. And it's an important issue. And here is a stark fact that I want to leave you with. In Boston, Massachusetts, the average net worth of a white family is $247,500. The average net worth of a black family in Boston, Massachusetts is $8. That's in our legacy.
I heard, and I'm going to have our panel talk about this, but what I heard about this woman's question, I don't know your name, I apologize, what can we do in our faith? There are three things, and I'm going to let our panel say what they heard, but I heard this gentleman talk about our theological underpinning, that we're all stardust and part of this, each other, and Kate's thing about need repentance, that might not be part of all of your faith traditions, but it's part of mine. And then this woman that we have to get out there and walk and do it, right? We have to walk and be warriors for justice and those kinds of things. So I think those are three good starts of what you can do if you're a person of faith, but I'd like to hear from our panel, so here we go.
Easy, yes, easy one. So many things to unpack here. We could be here for hours and hours and hours unpacking each one. So I'll just make a few comments. And one of the questions that we actually prepared here is, there's a trend to move beyond anti-racism to racial reconciliation, and what's the difference, and how do you see that? And the issue of reparations actually falls into that discussion as well, so I'll make a quick comment about that. So what we're seeing is really anti-racism being the stopping people from being racist, and stopping institutions from being racist. But what happens beyond that? If the institutions have stopped and people stop being racist, does that reconcile us with each other? Have we really dealt with the wrongs, the hurt that has been felt by people who have oppressed for so long? And that's the difference in reconciliation. It's helping to heal the hurt that has happened. One of the key things that we're seeing, that we're talking about in the Episcopal faith, at least, and I think my colleagues will probably talk about this too, is that reparations are a necessary start to reconciliation. They're not an end, but they are a necessary start. So we're looking at how we, John's madly right.
That was not a reaction to what you said.
So we're starting to put together ways, and the documents that you have in the first page for, it's a copy of the handout there, our policy document that I have to author from our national church committee, is looking at how do we help people understand, and to your question about what do we do today, and you're impatient, we have to make sure everyone is on the same page with an understanding of what the problem is, and that before we actually take action. Because otherwise you have fits and starts, you have people doing good things here, not doing good things there, and the problem never really goes away. So we need to get on the same page first. So we're looking at how do we create a systemic effort as part of the Jesus movement to eliminate the sin of racism. On that table also, we have an effort that's called Becoming a Beloved Community, and it's not something that's unique to the Episcopal Church. But we have outlined steps that we're looking to take as a church to become beloved community, starting with telling our story, acknowledging, as Reverend Kate says, that we have been complicit as a church, as an institution, in perpetuating the sin of racism. Once we tell the story and acknowledge it, then we can proclaim the gospel, proclaim the good news, teach people that treating everyone with dignity is how we reach the community. So after we've taught people that, after we've proclaimed the gospel, then we need to live our lives, repair the breach, reconcile with one another, and therefore with God. So that's where the Episcopal Church is heading, and Kate, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about in Concord here. I represent the national church and the diocese, but we want to try to make this a Concord local kind of discussion. So Kate, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about what St. Paul's is doing.
St. Paul's has done what many other school churches have done, and I'm sure other denominations as well. We had a meeting group for the New Year Pro, and they're all in up with another book, probably what we do next, and just continuing that conversation, moving forward, not just leaving it as a page. The New Year Pro, if you haven't read it, is going to be.
It's back on the table back there too.
I just want to say, I'm sorry, part of my job is just to keep the time, so we have 4 minutes before Carlos comes up and wraps us up. So if you want to take a question, or do you want to talk about the...
We can go a little bit longer. We can go a little bit longer.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this is good. We're into the question 6 and question 7, so...
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying 5 o'clock and into 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to go...
Question.
You want to do question. Great. I'm sorry, but there were some other people that I didn't see your hand. I saw... Did you have a question? You wait a while if you would like to ask a question. Okay, good.
Alright, so I think a lot about racism, like most people here, and one thing that I find really helpful is to, and again, this is not most people we come to stuff, that race itself is actually a lie. That's what the concept. It doesn't really exist. We just try to nail it down as continuously. And racial identity is something that's created by people for specific purposes, and is quite powerful and does require attention and resistance. And that the racial identity of whiteness was constructed in 1451 by a guy, who got a name, and I don't remember now, but he said, hey, biggest thing, we want to bring people from Africa to work as slaves, let's write a document that says that white people are better than black. First time whiteness showed up in the written word. So, whiteness was in its variations for the purpose of exploiting people and doing stuff. So I don't try to figure out how to be a good white person. I think whiteness is inherently problematic, which doesn't mean I can't be a good person. It means that I have to think about that relationship pretty much all the time. And I love what Jason said, you don't get to become anti-racist and check boxes like dental floss. If you're white, you gotta do it every day. So those are some.
Thank you. Between the world and me, a book to understand that concept if you wanted to.
We're going to need
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just have one comment about taking me. It's kind of different than what the white take was on it. The take me was absolutely about respect. And it's a redirect. And I'm seeing other family members redirected, hatred. Oh, you're against America, you're taking me. When paper decided he wanted to do something, he asked a Navy SEAL, what's the most respectful way to do this? He was not trying to get respectful. It's so hard for me to bite my tongue, especially with families, when they say, stand up, man, and they get all upset about taking a knee, which is a respectful thing to me also. And it's a redirect. I was just redirecting it. Well, it's about America. It's not about America. It's about beating people is what it's about. And that's just so, it's not putting it under the rug. It's not, it's redirecting it. Let's bring it around to something that we can win the argument instead of arguing the argument or discussing it. And that's what I
Yeah. Thank you. Sue, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm Sue Brewer, a member of the High Community here in Concord.
And the Baha'i take of humanity is that all of humanity are like flowers in a garden. The more the color, the more beautiful the garden is. Racism is a spiritual problem, and it can only be conquered spiritually on an individual basis by us reaching out and making friends across lines with people of many different backgrounds and many different races and many different creeds. And that's
So I want to go through, I guess, what the United Church of Christ is doing, but I am on the Racial Justice Mission Group. I think what I'd like to do, and it goes back to the idea of reparations, repairing the breach, is maybe to discuss some of the actions that we can do. Within our communities, they are now uncovering, and there's a book by something, Knockblad, right? Ethel? It's out. Anyway, there's a book about graveyards, or graves, unmarked graves in New England, and there's a whole section on New Hampshire. And the Black Heritage Trail is also doing that, uncovering these graves that have been long ignored of people who were enslaved, and taking care of them in their communities. That's a way of recognizing this terrible history and doing something creative and active as a sign of respect with these graves. Another thing we can do, it says sometimes that Sunday morning, and I don't know what it's like Friday night, can be the most segregated hour of the day. What kind of images are we using in our books, in our Sunday school curriculums, on our bulletins? What kind of stories are we telling? Are we telling stories of people of color? Is it all, just from a European background? What kind of toys do we have in our nurseries? Do we have dolls of color? Do we show and display that there is a great diversity? I love it in the nursery of the church I go. I provided